She walked into an elevator in downtown Los Angeles, and was never seen alive again. What the security camera captured that night would terrify millions, ignite endless online theories, and turn a struggling hotel into one of the most infamous places on Earth. Her name was Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old student from Vancouver whose dream trip to California ended inside the walls of the Cecil Hotel. Elisa was the kind of girl people remembered for her warmth and curiosity. She loved books, art, and late-night blogging about life, loneliness, and mental health. Her Tumblr page, now frozen in time, revealed a young woman searching for meaning, connection, and a break from the dark clouds that sometimes followed her mind. In January 2013, she decided to leave Canada and take a solo trip down the West Coast, San Diego, Los Angeles, maybe beyond. It was supposed to be an adventure, a fresh start, a story she could tell. When Elisa arrived in Los Angeles on January 26, she checked into the Cecil Hotel, a building with a reputation that whispered through the city's shadows. Once a glamorous 1920s landmark, it had decayed into something much darker, a place where crime, addiction, and tragedy seemed to live in the walls. Serial killers like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, had stayed there. Guests had jumped from windows, others had vanished, and locals called it cursed. But to Elisa, it was just another cheap hotel downtown, a convenient stop on her trip. For the first few days, things seemed normal. Elisa visited bookstores, explored the city, and stayed in touch with her family back home. She called or emailed her parents every day, a ritual of reassurance. But on January 31, 2013, everything stopped. No calls. No posts. No messages. Elisa Lam had vanished. When her parents didn't hear from her, they contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. Soon, flyers went up across Skid Row and downtown, a smiling girl with black hair and glasses, missing since the 31st. Police searched the building from top to bottom, but the Cecil was a maze, 15 floors, hundreds of rooms, and secrets that had been buried for decades. Officers used dogs to comb through hallways, stairwells, and even the rooftop. But the search came up empty. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, no clue where Elisa had gone. Her belongings, laptop, clothes, and medication, were still in her room. And yet, she was gone. Days turned into weeks, and the case began to fade, until the hotel released a piece of footage that would change everything. The video was taken from one of the hotel's security cameras, time-stamped February 1, 2013. It showed Elisa Lam entering an elevator. What followed was something no one could quite explain. She presses multiple buttons. The doors don't close. She steps back, peeks out nervously, then jumps back inside. It's as if she's hiding from someone, or something. Her hands wave in the air, her body jerks oddly, her movements confused, almost theatrical. Then, suddenly, she steps out into the hallway and disappears from view. The elevator doors close. And the world would never see her again. When the LAPD released the footage, it went viral overnight. Millions watched and rewatched it, frame by frame, searching for answers. Some said she was running from an attacker. Others claimed she was hallucinating. A few swore they saw a shadow move outside the elevator, proof, they believed, of something supernatural. The internet turned Elisa Lam into a digital ghost story. Forums filled with theories, foul play, mental breakdown, possession, murder. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had the truth. Back at the Cecil, strange complaints began surfacing. Guests on the upper floors reported low water pressure. Some said their water tasted odd, metallic, dirty, almost sweet. Others described it as dark or smelling strange. Maintenance workers were sent to check the rooftop water tanks, the ones that supplied the building's taps and showers. They climbed the narrow ladders, crossed the roof, and opened one of the heavy metal lids. Inside, floating face up in the dark water, was the body of Elisa Lam. She had been missing for nearly 3 weeks. The hotel's drinking supply had been feeding off the same tank. For investigators, the discovery only deepened the mystery. How did a 21-year-old girl end up inside a sealed water tank accessible only through locked doors and alarms? And why, after all the searches, the footage, the questions, had no one found her until now? The hotel was evacuated. The news exploded across every channel. The elevator video resurfaced, now darker than ever, seen through the lens of what came after. Reporters called it the Cecil's Curse Reborn. Theories multiplied: murder, suicide, conspiracy, cover-up. But amid the noise, one haunting question echoed louder than all: what really happened to Elisa Lam on the night she disappeared? Because the truth, as investigators were about to find out, was far stranger, and far sadder, than anyone could have imagined. The discovery of Elisa Lam's body should have brought answers. Instead, it opened a door to one of the most chilling mysteries in modern true crime history. She had vanished for nearly 3 weeks. Her body was found floating in a rooftop water tank, sealed, heavy, and almost impossible to access. But how did she get there? And what really happened inside the Cecil Hotel? When maintenance worker Santiago Lopez found Elisa's body, he described the moment with trembling words. He'd climbed to the roof to check the tanks after complaints about the water. The hatch was open just enough for him to look inside, and what he saw froze him. The young woman's body was naked, her clothes floating beside her. Her face was pale, her hair drifting in the dark water. No one could understand how she had gotten up there. The rooftop was restricted, locked, and alarmed. Only hotel staff had access, or so they thought. Police immediately sealed off the scene. The tank was drained, and forensic teams began their grim work. The coroner's office ruled Elisa's death an accidental drowning, though traces of her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder were found in her system. No drugs, no alcohol, no signs of trauma, no evidence of assault. On paper, it looked like an accident. But to the public, and to anyone who had seen the elevator footage, that explanation made no sense. If it was truly an accident, how could she have climbed up, lifted the heavy tank lid, slipped inside, and then sealed herself in, alone? Investigators retraced Elisa's final hours. Hotel staff remembered seeing her that night, calm, friendly, chatting about where she planned to go next. She was staying in a shared room, but after odd behavior that made her roommates uncomfortable, the hotel moved her to a private one. Some guests reported hearing strange noises at night, faint sounds of running water from above. Others claimed to see her wandering the hallways, talking to herself. When detectives examined her digital trail, they found her last known communication was a Tumblr post, poetic, confused, but not suicidal. Just days earlier, she had been planning visits to bookstores and art galleries. Nothing suggested what was coming. Then came the autopsy report, and with it, more questions. Elisa had no physical injuries, no sign of struggle. Her lungs were filled with water. Her clothes were found in the tank beside her, suggesting she might have removed them after falling in, possibly due to hypothermia disorientation. But there was one thing that didn't fit: the toxicology results showed her medication levels were lower than expected. Some experts theorized she may have stopped taking her medication, triggering a manic or psychotic episode. Was Elisa Lam a victim of her own mind, or something darker that the report couldn't explain? The internet, meanwhile, refused to let the story die. The video of Elisa's elevator behavior became a digital seance. Millions replayed every frame, slowed down every gesture, zoomed into every corner. Conspiracy theories exploded, that she was possessed, chased by a ghost, or caught in some government experiment. Some linked the case to a 2005 horror film called Dark Water, about a girl found dead in a water tank of a haunted building. The parallels were uncanny. Others pointed to the Cecil's bloody past, a building once home to serial killers, suicides, and the forgotten dead. To them, this wasn't coincidence. It was the hotel itself, a magnet for tragedy. But the truth, as investigators concluded, was far less supernatural, and far more human. Elisa had been battling bipolar disorder for years. Friends described her as bright and compassionate, but also unpredictable when off her meds. It's possible that during a manic episode, she became disoriented, fled to the roof through a fire escape door, and climbed into the tank herself. Once inside, the cold water and heavy lid trapped her. No one heard her cries, the walls of the Cecil were used to silence. If this was what happened, it wasn't murder or curse, it was a moment of confusion in a world that didn't understand her pain. Still, not everyone accepted that. Many questioned why the alarms never went off, or how Elisa, small and slight, could have lifted the lid alone. The hotel's management gave conflicting statements. Some said the hatch was open, others that it was closed. Even the timeline of discovery shifted in reports. Journalists, detectives, and amateur sleuths pieced together the story for years, but every answer seemed to lead to more uncertainty. The mystery of Elisa Lam refused to stay buried, because it lived in the space between logic and fear. In the aftermath, the Cecil Hotel became infamous. True crime tours added it to their stops. Netflix made a documentary about the case. And Elisa Lam, once a quiet student who wrote about loneliness, became an icon of the internet age, the girl in the elevator, forever trapped between myth and memory. Her Tumblr blog still exists, each post a whisper of the life she lived before the headlines. People still visit it, leaving comments, condolences, and theories. It's become a digital gravestone, a place where strangers mourn a girl they never knew, yet somehow feel they do. In the end, maybe the truth about Elisa Lam isn't a single story to solve. Maybe it's a reflection of something larger, our fascination with mystery, our fear of the unseen, and the empathy we feel for those who slip between the cracks. Was it the hotel's curse? A tragic accident? A mind in turmoil? We may never know. But the image of Elisa Lam, standing in that elevator, pressing buttons to nowhere, will haunt the internet forever. And perhaps that's why her story still echoes, years later, because deep down, we're all trying to understand what she saw when those elevator doors refused to close. What do you believe really happened to Elisa Lam? Was it a tragic accident, or something far more sinister hidden behind those walls? Let's talk in the comments below. And if you want more true stories that blur the line between mystery and madness, subscribe, because we're just getting started.